Welcome back to another FPL video and podcast. This will be my team selection for Game Week 5 in FPL. I've made some transfer blunders over the international break using all three of my available moves, and it hasn't paid off whatsoever, as I'll dive into in the first section, which is the Game Week 4 review. Smash the like button and subscribe for new if you enjoy my content. Let's try to get this to 200 likes, and let's keep on pushing towards new goals like 35 subscribers. We're already very close towards 28k, so thank you very much for your support. Keep your eyes peeled for more UCL Fantasy and FPL content on this channel, and also check all the links in the description below for my Patreon and the championships, so you get early access to my videos, amongst many other perks, the Discord server, FPL League, Drafthound, as well as Spotify. In the deadline stream on Saturday, I'll be looking to gift 10 memberships for free, so if you are engaged with the channel and you do also converse in the live chat and the comments section, it boosts your chances of being gifted a free membership for an entire month. Without further ado, let's jump straight into it. Outfield players are always the most important, but it is ideal to have a goalkeeper who gets the job done, and Dean Henderson hasn't been that this season. He had one decent game week in Game Week 3 against Chelsea with 6 saves, 4 points overall, and if he could do that consistently, I wouldn't even mind the lack of clean sheets, but it just hasn't been good enough. Only 1 point against Leicester at home in Game Week 4. That is very concerning, and I don't see Crystal Palace keeping that many clean sheets. Even Dean Henderson himself only kept 4 in the previous campaign. So on the wild card, whether it's in Game Week 6 or beyond, I think Dean Henderson is going to be nowhere near making that list. My defence was a big source of frustration this week, as Trent Alexander-Arnold blanked and only got 2 points against Nottingham Forest at home. That was Liverpool's first home defeat against Nottingham Forest since 1969. Hudson-Odoi scored a great goal, and I have to say, Forest deserved that victory. They defended very well and limited Liverpool to just one big chance, which fell to a certain Diogo Jota. Now, Trent was moved into the midfield after Liverpool made some very aggressive substitutions around 60 minutes, but they lost control of that game once those changes were made, and Trent is still a great option in the long term. He also got an assist in the Champions League in a 3-1 victory over AC Milan, but I think Liverpool's fixtures turning very soon around Game Week 7 and 8. You could make a case for getting off Trent in a couple of weeks' time, but for now, he is still definitely a hold and one of the best defenders in FPL. Next up is Robinson, the most frustrating of all. In the 95th minute, Fulham are 1-0 up, and with the last kick of the game essentially, West Ham equalised through Danny Ings. It seemed inevitable. 1-1 was quite a realistic scoreline between these two clubs, and unfortunately Robinson came out empty-handed. He's still a good option at 4.7 million, but that would have been Fulham's first clean sheet of the season, and it seems like they're allergic to those clean sheets. So with Robinson, you're really relying on attacking returns and bonus points, but I think Fulham can keep a clean sheet eventually. It's just not going to be as often as we would like. The third and final defender was Lewis Dunk, one of my transfers in this week, the only one that's paid off so far. I sold Lewis Hall, who started for the first time since Game Week 1, but Wolves scored very early on against Newcastle, whilst Brighton were held to a 0-0 draw against Ipswich Town. A quite surprising result, and the biggest news of that day was the absence of Joao Pedro, but Dunk got the job done. He was on course for bonus points at one stage, but just a 6, I'll still take it. It's far better than what the rest of my defensive line could deliver. This was just one of those weeks. The midfield was absolutely awful. Mohamed Salah had a terrible performance against Nottingham Forest. I think he completed 1 dribble and he did nothing in that game. Never looked like scoring or assisting. And that's also big credit once again to Nottingham Forest defensive work. Nuno Espirito Santo played a tactical masterclass. Now, it was an off game for Salah, who also failed to return against AC Milan in the Champions League, but he hit the woodwork twice on that occasion, and I think the returns will come yet again, and I thought he would pull ahead of Haaland in the next couple of weeks, but so far it's the Norwegian who is by far the best option in FPL at this moment in time. My second midfielder is Diogo Jota, and he started the game against AC Milan, didn't play that well either, so I wouldn't be surprised if he was dropped against Bournemouth at home in Game Week 5. He does cause me some concerns, and he's been missing so many big chances in all of the games, especially in the Premier League, so I'm very concerned about Diogo Jota in the long term. He is staying fit, which is a big positive, as I'm normally very concerned about his fitness, but he's not delivering the returns as we know he can do. And for those that are asking, why did Jota only get 1 point whilst Diaz got 3? It's because Jota left the pitch before 60 minutes and Luis Diaz left around 60 minutes and 15 seconds into the game. So a very unfortunate swing of 2 points between the Colombian and the Portuguese international, but it is what it is. Those are the rules in FPL, and it's all part of the folklore in this game. Now, my third midfielder was Emil Smith-Rowe, the only one to produce a return. He got an assist and bonus points, so I'm very happy with him. And as a budget midfielder, he has done the business for me. I've started him every single week. He has blanked twice, but returns in 2 games, including a 10-pointer back in Game Week 2. I'm very impressed with Smith-Rowe. I think he'll be a great signing for Fulham. And just like with Jota, the biggest concern is, can he stay fit? We'll wait and see, but hopefully he can do, because he can push Fulham into the top half of the table. Now we've got Eze, who has been a huge disappointment, but he got a goal and assist in the Carabao Cup. Not like anyone cares, especially those that own him in FPL, but it goes to show what he is capable of, and he got 1 double-digit haul against Chelsea. But apart from that, he has been awful and just so frustrating. Good underlying numbers, and you see Mateta taking the penalty. Now, Glasner did clarify the situation after the game. He said that both Eze and Mateta are the penalty takers, and they decide on the pitch on that particular day. So hopefully the next time Crystal Palace get a penalty, it'll be Eze taking it and scoring for those that own him in FPL. Now, the final midfielder was a certain Anthony Gordon, who looked very ineffective against Wolves. He did hit the post once, and unfortunately he couldn't get the job done. My preference was always to keep Isak over Anthony Gordon, but because of my transfer plans, which involved bolstering my defensive line and getting Lewis Dunk, I had to sell Isak and keep Anthony Gordon. But despite some good performances this season, especially against Bournemouth and over the international break with England, he isn't doing it consistently in FPL, and we could see a big drop-off this season. My aim in FPL at the moment is to make a competitive and balanced squad which isn't relying on one man, but unfortunately Erling Haaland is carrying my FPL team for the first 4 game weeks of the season, and captaining him seems absolutely essential, dare I say. It's very important to captain him every single week given his current form, but you saw how he played against Inter Milan, the first top quality opponent Man City have faced this season, and he did nothing in that game. Then it's Arsenal next, a team he really struggled against last season, even producing an XG figure of exactly 0 in one particular match. So that could also be a cause for concern. But with Haaland's form overall, it's difficult to back against him in any game. He is still a great captaincy choice against the Gunners, so I wouldn't put it past him to score a couple of goals in that game. But if there was ever a game to possibly go against him for the captaincy, I think Arsenal, home or away, could be one of those sets of fixtures where you can challenge Erling Haaland and come out on top, which I didn't do in Game Week 4. But my final player in the starting 11 was Chris Wood. He was subbed on because Joao Pedro missed the game completely against Ipswich Town, and Hurstler provided an update just before the 3-2 victory over Wolves in the Carabao Cup. I never expected Chris Wood to do anything against Liverpool, but Nottingham Forest got the job done with that 1-0 victory. It was a terrible game week for me, only 41 points, so it's by far the worst I've performed so far this season, and my rank went from 266,000 to 905k, so a terrible rank drop, but it's only 1 game week, and it goes to show that the margins are very tight. If I have a good performance in Game Week 5, I can easily go right back up to where I was, or perhaps even surpass that rank of 266k. So I'm at 282 points overall. The league code is there, and there is a link in the description below. I captained Salah over Erling Haaland. That was my plan for the last couple of weeks, and it backfired massively. It wasn't influenced whatsoever by the news of Erling Haaland having a family member pass away or someone close to his family, which also put in doubt his starting chances against Brentford. But honestly speaking, Haaland is in that kind of form where he can score against anybody, but Salah was as well just before that game, and let's see if he can deliver against Bournemouth at home. We've got another big captaincy debate going into Game Week 5, where Haaland has the tougher fixture but better form, and then Salah as the midfielder has that advantage of getting an extra point for scoring a goal and the clean sheet points. So let's delve right into the Game Week 5 team selection, starting with the goalkeeper. I could probably name 10 better options than Dean Henderson between the sticks, but it's the goalkeeper I have right now. He faces Man United at home, who are in good form. They scored 7 past Barnsley in the Carabao Cup and also got a 3-0 victory over Southampton in Game Week 4, whilst Crystal Palace are yet to record a victory in the Premier League this season. They did progress in the Carabao Cup though, and Dean Henderson was booked in that game, but they're yet to translate the form from the Carabao Cup to the Premier League in terms of goals scored and getting the victories on board. Let's see what they can do over the weekend. They've got a decent record against the Red Devils in recent seasons, but I'm not too confident about Dean Henderson. It's very likely that I need to bolster my defensive line very soon, but for Game Week 5, I've got Trent Alexander-Arnold at home to Bournemouth. It's a fixture where they considered last season Semenyo actually gave the Cherries the lead before Liverpool made a comeback and won 3-1 in the end. And in the year before that, Liverpool won 9-0 against Bournemouth. That's not going to happen this time round, that's for sure. Salah somehow blanked in that game, whilst Trent got a massive return. And if Liverpool can keep a clean sheet in Game Week 5, I think Trent could easily produce a double-digit haul. My second defender is from the other side of Merseyside, and that's Mykolenko, who is currently flagged with an illness, and there are multiple Everton players with the same condition. The same goes for Dominic Calvert-Lewin, for example, but Everton are bottom of the Premier League. They're playing terribly at the moment. That's back-to-back weeks where they're 2-0 up and somehow still lose the game, and hopefully they don't do it for a third time running, but I think Leicester will probably score in this game, and I'll talk about some of my benching dilemmas very soon, but I don't want to rely on Mykolenko too often in the next couple of weeks. One big news, though, that could really boost Everton is the return of Branthwaite, who is a very good centre-back, and I think he could completely transform Everton's prospects of winning games and keeping clean sheets. Now, the final defender in my starting 11 is Lewis Dunk at home to Nottingham Forest. A clean sheet isn't guaranteed here either, but Brighton have been very solid defensively so far this season. I have several concerns about this position, but Mohamed Salah remains the best option for the next couple of weeks. From Game Week 6 and beyond, though, you could definitely argue that Saka is a more viable option on the wildcard when Arsenal face Leicester and Southampton at home back-to-back, followed up by Bournemouth away. But Salah can still perform against Wolves after this. You've also got Crystal Palace and Chelsea. These are fixtures where Salah has thrived over the last couple of seasons. But my biggest concern probably lies with Diogo Jota. Will he even start against Bournemouth? That isn't guaranteed. Now, he's one of those players that can come off the bench and make an immediate impact with a goal or an assist. He did it several times last season, but you'd always rather have a player start the game, and he has been in the lineup for every single match so far this season in the Champions League and Premier League, but I'm still very concerned about Jota's minutes in the long term. Now, moving on to more positive things, Emil Smith-Rowe has been in good form this season, but he does face Newcastle at home, and the Toon sit third in the Premier League table. They haven't performed that well, but they still find themselves unbeaten and just behind the likes of Arsenal and Manchester City, whilst Fulham are doing okay. They're scoring a few goals. Emil Smith-Rowe is putting in some good performances, but you will see some inconsistency and possibly some blanks from time to time. That's definitely to be expected for a 5.7 million midfielder. But next up is Eze, who is more expensive, and he has been disappointing in this new campaign. Let's see if he can finally translate the Carabao Cup form to the Premier League, because if he can do so, we will be looking at some massive returns, double-digit hauls galore for Eze, and Nketiah and Mateta could be key in unlocking the potential of Eze with the assists, who does tend to score more than create, to be quite honest with you. But my final midfielder in the starting 11 is Anthony Gordon. He's another one I'm not completely sure about. Fulham away isn't the easiest of games. Then you've got Man City at home, and Newcastle assets are sellable. Despite their good form in the Premier League with the results, Harvey Barnes has definitely overshadowed Anthony Gordon so far this season. I'm going for a 3-5-2 formation yet again, and Erling Haaland will always be in my starting lineup. He does face Arsenal at home, which could be very similar to the Inter Milan game. That sort of blueprint can work against the Citizens, but it's still so difficult to get a victory at the Etihad Stadium, and Erling Haaland is in incredible goal-scoring form despite that blank in the Champions League. But my final player is a certain Joao Pedro, who is currently yellow flagged. Now, the latest update was provided by Hustler just before the Carabao Cup game against Wolves, and he said he made a training session today, and we shouldn't or we don't want to take any risk for today. Let's see how the next few days will be. So he missed that game against Wolves in the Carabao Cup, a 3-2 win for Brighton, but it seems like he's very close to making the squad, and I think he'll start in Game Week 5. But if we get any news or further press conferences which indicate otherwise, I would then put Chris Wood in for Joao Pedro, and that would cause a clash between Lewis Dunk and the Nottingham Forest striker, which is far from ideal. I've also got Robinson on my bench, and that could also be another clash if I start Anthony Gordon and Robinson at the same time. So my squad for Game Week 5 doesn't look great. I was very confident about Game Week 4, but it was just completely terrible with only 3 players producing a return. I'm hoping for much less of that in the coming weeks. Although the bench isn't as important as it would be in UCL, Euro or World Cup fantasy, it's always nice to have a good option on your bench just in case they're needed, and Chris Wood and Robinson are decent. The problem with them is they cause clashes with Lewis Dunk and also Anthony Gordon, but they can still deliver at the same time, of course. It just reduces the chances of that happening. And with Mykolenko and Joao Pedro yellow flagged, I think it's very likely or possible that one of Chris Wood or Robinson will be called upon to fix this starting 11. Diogo Jota might even start against Bournemouth at home, so there are some concerns with this team. There are some excellent picks in here, of course, but I also think there are some big issues, especially in the coming game weeks, and a wildcard in Game Week 6 could really work. That is my current plan, to use that chip in Game Week 6, but it's not set in stone. As for the captaincy, I'm going for Salah over Erling Haaland. Will lightning strike twice? Will I get it wrong yet again with the captaincy? It was my first captaincy blank of the season, to be fair, back in Game Week 4, but it's still a bit frustrating. And with Haaland facing Arsenal, I think it's worth taking a punt or going against him with a Salah against Bournemouth at home. But maybe you feel differently. You'll go for form over fixture, and I tend to do that myself. But Arsenal is one of the most difficult games on paper for any team in club football. Then again, it is Man City and Erling Haaland we're talking about. They very rarely drop points or don't win in successive games, even if it's a Champions League and Premier League tie being involved in that conversation. So my bench includes Matthews, Wood, Robinson and Barco, who is still in there. I've got 2 yellow flags and some issues with my team like Gordon and Jota. Let's see how things pan out in Game Week 5. There is a link to Drafthound in the description below. I'd highly encourage you to check it out. And for as little as £2 per week, you gain access to all the tools, including the player rankings, transfer suggestions, and also the optimization tool for your squad, where the captaincy, benching headaches, and transfers are all suggested to you. Now, they are actually recommending Gordon to Madueke as the top priority. Then they've got Dunk to Dean, and then Eze to Madueke. I'm not really feeling Chelsea assets, to be honest. I think Cole Palmer is the only one I'd consider, and Madueke is not even nailed on, so I do disagree in this regard. But then when you look at the player rankings, I think a lot of it is spot on, with Haaland and Salah in the top 2 as always. You've got Watkins, who for me is a great captaincy shout in Game Week 5. Heung-min Son against Brentford. Jota is still very highly rated, and I hope he can deliver against Bournemouth. Then you've got Palmer, Diaz, Isak, Jackson, and also Mateta, all completing the top 10. My expected points in fpl.team is actually much lower than it is on Drafthound, which is 68.3. So I hope Drafthound are correct and I can maybe exceed that figure. The average ownership is 22%, which is lower than I expected. And they also recommend Haaland as my captain, Salah as my vice, with Wood, Mykolenko and Barco on my bench. So the only changes really compared to what I've gone for is the captaincy. So they go for Haaland and I've gone for Salah. They've also placed Robinson over Mykolenko in the starting 11, which is a great suggestion, to be fair. And I might end up changing that during the Game Week 5 deadline stream. So check out the link in the description below for Drafthound. And now let's move over to fpl.team. This will be a sneak preview of Game Week 6, and my Game Week 5 team isn't fully locked in anyway, but it's always nice to plan ahead and have an idea of what other transfers you want to make. So Henderson will be in goal away to Everton. Mykolenko, Robertson and Trent would form the back three, with Eze, Salah, Jota and Smith-Rowe in the midfield, and Joao Pedro, Wood and Haaland up front. The likes of Matthews, Gordon, Dunk and Barco would be on the bench. There are some tough fixtures and plenty of fixture swings, and that's why Game Week 6 wildcard could really work well for me, and I would definitely be looking to buy Arsenal players, and maybe 2 or 3 of them would be the best sort of structure from Game Week 6 to 8. Even afterwards, you've got some tough fixtures for Arsenal, but I think it's definitely worth doubling or tripling up on the Gunners from this point onwards, and that's where my transfer plans or the wildcard could definitely come into play. Thank you very much for watching this video and listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed it or found it useful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe for new. Our aim is to get this to over 200 likes and to keep on pushing towards 35 subscribers and beyond. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and check all the other links in the description below for my Patreon and the championships, the Discord server, FPL League, Drafthound, as well as Spotify. Leave a 5-star review on my podcast. It goes a long way to support my channel. I wish you all the best of luck for Game Week 5 and the rest of the season, and I'll see you next time.